Good evening, I'm Julie Chen.
Wake up, everybody!
But first,
I cannot. On my daughter's birthday. Disgusting. Anybody want cake?
I want to welcome you guys all to my big brother funeral.
I can't find an individual to hate because I hate you all.
Welcome to Not Game, All Personal. Hey, we are a Big Brother podcast here to talk about all things Big Brother, more specifically the events of this week, and even more specifically than that, double eviction. I'm Nathan. This is Tony, and despite the double eviction, we are both staying tonight. Tony, how are you doing?
Nathan, I am doing well. How are you on this fine Thursday evening?
I'm good. We made it. We survived it. It was
Hey.
eventful for a lot of reasons. Yeah, I'm glad that it was a double eviction tonight because it was a slower week, I would say, compared to what we've had normally this season. As far as I feel like Thursday night, this plan was in motion. The plan succeeded, and so I don't know how much we would have had to talk about, which is how previous seasons have gone. But we have a double eviction, so there are things to talk about on this podcast tonight.
Yeah, I don't even think they considered flipping from Cameron at all. Like, they were just like, nope, Cameron's the one. Which I think, and we'll get into this, I don't know if that was the best move. And that's prior to, obviously, what happened to the double eviction. But, yeah, should we just dive right in?
Let's talk about that. Let's just get that out of the way because, like I said, it was very straightforward. Cameron was the target due to a Corey America nomination. Jag wins the veto, takes off Corey, Cam's backdoor. And I would agree with you. I don't know if that was the best choice for several people. But why do you think it wasn't a good call?
Yeah, so last week we talked about what happened Thursday afternoon, which, honestly, the episode on Sunday, I think, reflected what happened in that conversation extremely well.
Yeah.
Which you love to see. Like, it felt very spot on for what happened. Jared was definitely getting called out for his stuff, but it didn't. Everything. And I feel like once you have that happen, Jared and Suri were way too comfortable to still just focus on Cameron when Cameron literally doesn't have anyone in the house. And Cameron's going after you just because he's trying to convince people that that's the move to do. But if you align with Cameron, I genuinely think he's with you. And then there's these people in the house who are accusing you of lying in front of everyone. And they're the backup plan. Sure, you put them on the block, which is in theory worse because you're telling them that they're the backup plan, and then you just don't even consider getting out Corey or America. Like, it just, I think Heisem wasn't the best move. I understand it. I don't think it was the best move. Sending out Red, I understand because I feel like that was just cleaning up a mess that Jared made. But this is the first move that I feel like Suri has made this decision, and it's Suri and Jared, whatever. Yeah, it's mostly Suri, I think, that was planning it. It's the first time that I've been like, this is just a bad move, and I don't know why they're doing it. To avenge Izzy, I don't think sending Cameron out will make Izzy feel better. You know what will make Izzy feel the best? If you win Big Brother. And this didn't feel like the best step towards that. I just went on a long rant, but that's how I feel about it.
No, and I agree with a lot of that. And I would even take it a step further because I think tonight was the night, or I guess this whole week, where I was evaluating, has Suri played a great game? And that's a big switch for me because I think all the points you made, Heisem, Red, all these things, I think every one of them, in hindsight, now that we're up until this point, I think all those turned out to be the wrong move. I mean, even go back to Riley. Riley was next to Cam on the block. Maybe you should have got Cam out that week instead of Riley. You know what I mean? So, like, it's really hard to justify any one of those decisions now because we are at the point where she lost Izzy and Jared, not back-to-back because Cam was in the middle, but back-to-back weeks there. So, like, 8 days ago, you had Izzy and Jared in the game, and now she has none of them, and we'll talk about it. She's on everyone's radar at this point. Like, I think people will still work with her, but we saw a little spoiler for what we'll talk about. Matt and Jag just straight up called her out in the live HOH tonight. That was a move. So, like, I think it's worth looking back and saying, Sari, did you make a good move when it comes to evictions this year? I don't know if she did.
Like I said, it's hard to look at it in a vacuum like that because Heisem was in charge for the Riley vote. That's what he wanted, and they were like, "Okay, we're gonna backdoor hit you next week." So like, you can't look at each of them in a vacuum because they do impact each other in certain ways. And I do think that the majority of the mistakes that were made were cleaning up for other people or trying to account for what other people were trying to do. And so, was she on board with it? For sure. Did she want to get Heisem out? Absolutely. Was she swayed by the people around her who were all upset with him? Probably. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
it's hard to blame everything on her, but it's reaching the point where you can't just blame Jared every time, even though that's what I want to do because I feel like it's Jared every time. But I feel like this is the best thing that could happen for her is losing those two. And I've been saying that for years. I think now she has no one working with her. I think people think that her and Felicia are probably still working together. I think both of them are coming at that relationship in the mindset that they are not working together. And so now
Correct.
she's just a free agent, and it's not like she wins competitions. She
Mm-hmm.
has never won an individual immunity,
No.
which is outrageous. Like, that's
Mm-hmm.
crazy to me. So she just doesn't win competitions. So I feel like she's going to be in a good spot. I feel like she's, as long as she's free of Jared, which we'll see based on this next week. But
Correct.
I think Jared, if he comes back in the house, she will sink her game. She will get voted out. If he doesn't come back in the game, I think she will make it decently far still.
Yeah, I don't disagree with a lot of that. The only other thing I'll say about Cam, and this is just reiterating the point that we are making right now, but I think anytime you have a unanimous decision like that, and I'm not talking like unanimous vote as the actual vote itself, because we know, like, even like we said last week, even though it's
Mhm.
unanimous, doesn't always mean everyone's on board. But this week, everybody wanted Cameron out. And I think those are the times where you need to look and say, wait a minute, everybody wants Cameron out. That means this is going to benefit everyone's game, at least in their mind. So, like, not even Suri and Jared, but if you're like Matt or Jag or like Mimi and Phil, like, I think those are the times where you're like, wait a minute, this is weird that everyone is okay with this. Does that mean I should be? And the fact that like
Mhm.
nobody really questioned that kind of bothers me a little bit because outside of like Corey in America, like everyone else should have at least questioned it. Those are the only two
Mhm.
people that should have been like, no, 100% Cam no matter what. And
Mhm.
yeah, I mean, like, it's kind of weird that Jared made this his number one target and no other option. And he made it very clear even before the nominations, even before the veto. Like, there wasn't even this, like, Cameron kind of like played everyone a little bit or like wanted to keep some information. Jared told the entire house, this is my plan. This is what I'm doing. No going back. And that's what happened. And I'm just like, that's one, boring, but also not great. Like, at least utilize your HOH for some information. And even if Jared was in the house, I wouldn't consider this week a win because did he actually gain anything from it? It's not like he
Mhm.
formed a new alliance. It's not like he formed new allies. There was nothing gained from this HOH other than getting out the probably the biggest comp piece next to you. But now they're both out, so who knows who's going to win the competitions now?
Yeah. Yeah, it's really open to anyone. And that's the fascinating thing to me is Jared's literally taking out other people's garbage. Because I think if anybody else on that side, so Jag, Matt, Corey, America, those four feel like the four. Blue is kind of involved with them. Bowie, I think, is on that side. If any of them win, they're going after Jared, Suri, or Felicia. Absolutely, hands down. I'm so confident. And Blue probably as a pawn. So that they were going to do what essentially Corey did. And so what you're going to do instead of taking the first shot, which you should do in that situation, you're going to take out the person who so they don't have a choice but to go for you. Like there's no conversation. Corey was going to go for them because there wasn't even the consideration of Cameron. And that's how like Dan and these people that I've talked about in the past sneak by because it's like, why would I waste a week on somebody that has nobody with them? That's exactly what Jared did, and it dug him a hole. If he had taken a shot at Corey, obviously Corey wins that next HOH. Corey can't win that next HOH, so that completely changes that competition, and you don't know how it goes otherwise. So it felt so foolish. In hindsight, it definitely vindicated that thought, but I understand it's not a perfect thing.
Mm-hmm. Correct. Yeah. Well, possibly goodbye to Cameron. We'll see. Let's just, let's just acknowledge the twist that was announced, and then we'll
Mhm.
get back to the double eviction. Big Brother Zombies, where there is nothing happening this week as far as no HOH, no nominations, no veto,
And it
and
makes
no
sense.
eviction.
It
So
like makes sense with no episode Wednesday, but also like, is it a vote to see which zombie comes back to life? Is it a competition? If it's the whole week of them trying to
yeah,
rally votes, that will be interesting. I think Jared gets sent home in that scenario. I feel like you want to give a fighting chance in that scenario. I don't know. It'll be very
yeah,
interesting.
it will be interesting, and I feel I don't think it'll be votes because I feel like that's just almost unfair to Jared. I hate to say it, but like it is, and I think the producers know that, CBS knows that. Maybe not though. I could be wrong. But if it's not votes, it's gonna be a boring week. Like what else are you gonna do? Like I don't
Honestly.
know if the live feeds are gonna be that interesting because there's no really change in power. There's no uh, like there's no one to vote out this week. So you're pretty much waiting
Hmm.
until there's an HOH to know how do I strategize, which is it's bizarre. But yeah, I guess of these two, Cameron and Jared, do you have a personal preference on like who you want to come back? Because I don't even know how to discuss this. Like, do we just go through them both and like, what are the odds that this person? Well, like, I feel like I don't know how to talk about this because it's never happened before. Like, we've never seen this in Big
Yeah.
Brother.
Yeah, we've seen battlebacks, but nothing quite like this. This feels like Camp Comeback from season 21, where they're
True.
still living in the
Yes.
house, but then there's a challenge at the end. But
But at
there's
least the
still
game
HOH.
continued with
Yeah, there's still gameplay happening in that. Whereas this is just we're just hanging out for a week.
Uh-huh.
So going in, once the episode finished, I was like, awesome, I love it. Cameron got voted out, which means America and Corey are safe. Jared got voted out, and because he's a dummy, and so I was very excited. And then it hit me that those two have been such a source of like entertainment in the house
Right.
that like there's a part of me that wants Jared to stay in because Jared just lies his pants off in unnecessary situations and just gets himself drowning in lies just so unnecessarily. And it's fun to watch because he sucks. And then Suri
Yeah.
has to clean up for him. And then the same thing with Cameron, like he's just such a pariah. Did I use that word right? I think I did. Where like everybody in the
so.
house wants him out. Nobody wants to work with him. He's like untouchable.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a fascinating dynamic in the game because then you always have that fallback option. But he is so good at comps that he's just going to win and do whatever he wants. It's literally chaos when he wins, which is so exciting. So I don't think we lose, regardless of who comes back in. Honestly, I'd like to see Cameron more. And part of it for me is it's frustrating to see how sloppy Jared is and see him continue to get away with it.
Right.
And then once Jared is out of the house, there's no longer a Suri. Like, yes, she got to this point with Jared, and that means something. But any gameplay from this point on is entirely her. So we can see was the sloppy gameplay the people that were around her, and she's in a tough spot, obviously. But I think we just get to see so much more. So I think that's where I stand. I would love to see Jared be out of there. And Cameron come back in.
Yeah, I definitely would prefer Cameron. I think the only kind of worst case scenario with that, as far as like an exciting season goes, is if he just immediately sides with the people like Corey, America, Matt, Jack, like they all group up, right? And then she's like, Suri's gone. And it's like, okay, cool. Now it's, I guess the house would have to reset then, as far as like sides go and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
But I wouldn't want to see him just join this, what isn't a majority, because it's not like they're all in alliance, but they were at least all on the same page for tonight as far as like Jared has to go, and everyone thought that. Yeah, I think the other slightly boring thing that is probably very likely is that whether it's Cameron or Jared, they might just go the next week. like that might be the easy thing to do, especially because we're still on a jury. Like These two people were supposed to be the first juror, so whoever doesn't make it back in goes to jury. Or no,
Neither of them
sorry,
would have been
doesn't.
jury.
Right. That's what I mean. So whoever doesn't come back next week doesn't go to jury, and then we still
And
have
then
one
the
more
next
week
person.
of non-jury.
Yep.
And so there's no hard feelings if Jared comes back and you vote him out again right away, right? Because you don't. So I think like
He's not voting.
I think it's very likely that that's the safe move. You become HOH next week, you're like, hey, we already voted out Cameron. Let's just do it again. Easy, no blood on your hands. You already know everyone's on board. And so I am very worried that that's probably going to be the case.
Yeah. I think Cameron's interesting because he becomes like this third party. Whereas if Jared wins, he automatically joins Team Suri, which feels like it would just be the two of them. So if anybody else wins, it's those two on the block. Hands down. No questions asked. Suri would probably ask to get voted out over Jared, and then I'd be annoyed that she's giving up her game for her poor game playing son.
Yeah.
But yeah, so Cameron feels like the interesting one because it's another wrinkle. Yes, he might join that other side, but they ultimately don't trust him, and he has to know that at this point. Like, they're not going to lean on him. But yeah, there is always that risk of like, okay, now we got a boring week ahead of us. Which maybe that just means good feeds and like a lot of back and forth. That's always fun. Jared
It could. I do think that there's going to be more, though. I mean, just the whole announcement, like, scary week. Like, there has to be more things, like whether or not they have to do stupid things. Maybe there are some competitions that look, I don't know. Like, there has to be something. But, I mean, like, to be honest, it's probably just because they want everyone to watch Survivor on Wednesday, which is what I'll be doing instead. But, like, that's really it. Like, this was probably just a scheduling thing, and I don't know. They just didn't want to have to compete, I guess, with themselves.
And somehow they also turned a double eviction, which I think you might have sent this to me or someone did, where there was a double eviction this week, and then it would have been a single eviction every time until the finale. But somehow they turned it into this double eviction turned into one eviction over the next couple weeks, which I think opens them up to even do a triple later on or a couple doubles. And so it opens up like there can be some pretty chaotic gameplay towards the end with a lot of people going, which is what you want. It's just single evictions for the last couple. I think they're trying to set up for a triple for sure, which triples are always fun. They shake up the game in a very interesting way.
Is it true that
Yeah.
we only had one triple in 22 with All Stars? I feel like
we
that
had another
was.
one.
I don't.
I think we've talked about this a couple times though.
Yeah, probably. So go listen to all our other episodes to find out the answer. I'll write that down in our notes so I have it for next time. Let's
pulling it
talk
up right now.
about the double eviction then, where Corey wins HOH in what is I've said it before, my favorite type of competition where you're forced to make split-second decisions of who you potentially are targeting or who you're working with. And I feel like this one was huge because at first it was like, oh, I think Mimi might have chosen like blue or something, or I don't know. Like it was like, okay, yeah, blah 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 blah. And then Jag, I think, was first. Or maybe it was Matt. I don't know. Well, the two of them,
It was Jag, I think.
they call out Suri. And I think the second person that called her out, because like she beat them both, by the way. So there was a moment where I was like, oh no, is Suri just about to like dominate this? Like that would have been disappointing for us Jared haters, but just very impressive. But when the second person called her up, she was like shocked. She's like, wait, what? Oh, like she did not.
Matt, I think. And so
yeah,
she
like she just did not see that coming. And I love that sort of drama, and that's exactly what I want for that competition. Suri's having a tough night, though, having that happen and then losing her son. But, yeah, I mean, what do you think about Jag and Matt just being that bold with her?
I love it. You needed to just draw a line in the sand. Enough of this dancing around it. You knew that that's what the plan was, especially after what happened last week. Yeah, all in on that.
Yeah, agreed. Then Matt ends up winning the veto, not using it, so it is. Well, I guess I skipped the part where Corey nominated Jared and Blue. I thought his logic was interesting. We got a little snippet of him talking to Blue,
Mhm.
and he was saying that he didn't want to put her in the position of having to vote out Jared, which I thought, hey, that's a decent excuse, for having to
Mhm.
put her up. And then also didn't want, if she wins the veto, knowing that she would have to use it on him. Didn't want that to happen.
Mhm.
So I'm like, that's good reasoning. He ended up saying he wouldn't put her on the block though. So I don't know if there's gonna be bad blood with that. But
Yeah. She asked that at the last second, and he was like, sure. And then talked to like 4 other people. So it was like, actually, I'm not going to do that.
right,
Which you
which
can
I
explain that, like, yeah, we had like 3 seconds, and I didn't quite understand what you said. Sorry.
yeah, I think it's fine. I thought it was good logic though. Um,
Mhm.
but I do want to talk about Blue
Yep.
because
I wanted to go
on
there
the
too.
feeds and both in the episodes, we got quite a bit from her. And I feel like every time I call someone out, this happened with Bowie. Now it happened with Blue because last week I'm pretty sure on this
Oh.
episode I specifically said Blue is the only person not playing, and she winds up acting like, I won't say she's playing yet, but from the way she's talking on the feeds and in the episode, it appears like she wants to, like, she
Mhm.
was threatening to target Jared.
Yeah.
And it felt real. I think there's a chance she might have done that, which is crazy to think of, but I don't know. I'm like, oh man, is Blue gonna show up second half of the season here?
I feel like she threw that HOH so she didn't actually have to pull the trigger on that. At least I would have if I were in her position. Because I know what Corey's going to do, so I don't need to beat him. I think it was those two at
Sure.
the end there.
Yeah.
Yeah, this week it was really fun to see her finally just like, because Jag told her about all the other alliances, so she like
Mm-hmm.
approaches Jared, and it just feels like he's bullying her and just like so heavy-handed, like manipulating her into not being nervous around him or not being nervous about him. And it's just, I didn't like it. It made me uncomfortable. It was a lot. I watched it twice. I watched it earlier today, and then I went over to a friend's and watched it again before the episode tonight. And it's just, yeah, just completely blaming her for any feelings that she's having, and then her feelings are making him uncomfortable. Disgusting. And then listening to her say like his responses were ass. That was my that was possibly my favorite diary room moment of the season. Like that was so funny. And then watching her just be like, "Screw this guy! Like this is stupid."
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I hope she turns on him. It's very interesting now because she has this secret. What if she just spilled it as soon as he left and then he came back? Like that would be peak television. I doubt. I don't think she did, but that would have been
Yeah.
phenomenal.
I'm still very confused on how much she actually knows, because it feels like in the DR she's like, "Oh, I know something," but like we never see any indication on the live feed. It was like, if you actually knew this, I feel like you'd be acting a lot different. But she just like doesn't do anything. So I'm like, are you the best game player ever and is just holding this to the best moment possible? I don't know. I don't think so, right? Like she can't be that.
Yeah.
No offense, she can't be that smart of a game player.
The
But
way that they cut it, definitely seems like she knows that it's surreal.
yeah.
But yeah, on the feeds you don't see much. I feel like I've heard rumblings that she'll like have conversations with, I don't remember if it's Felicia or Suri, but it's kind of like fishing for information or like dancing around the information. I
Hmm.
think it's Suri because I think Suri's like, what's going on here? Like this is a problem. Um,
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, and it's interesting too because Suri has definitely tried to make an effort with her, and so I do wonder if there might be some sort of relationship with Jared out of the house. But no, it was very funny on the feeds, even like Thursday night. So I will say, something that we mentioned last week during the Corey Jared fight,
Hmm.
that we talked a lot about it last week. But post episode, I know we mentioned that like there was a moment where Jared kind of tried to use like Matt's disability against him as like, oh, you misunder. On the live feeds, Matt was not happy about it. And I guess right when the live feeds cut, Jag even like blew up on Jared a little bit. So it does give a lot more explanation for why they're so against him. So like
Yeah.
even though like a lot of people were like, "Oh, that was kind of low, Jared. You shouldn't do that." Like Matt noticed it and he was talking to everyone about it.
Hmm.
So like it was definitely noticeable. And so he was talking to Blue about it. And essentially like Thursday night, again, right when Jared got HOH, Blue is turning against him because of the vote, and she finally connects the dots that like she was targeting Matt and Jag, who were her friends week 1 because of Jared, and realizing like, oh, he manipulated me to not want to work with my friends, and that's what really bothered her. And all week it was very funny because essentially here's the chain of command. So like, Suri would tell information to Jared. Jared would then tell it to Blue without Suri's permission because Jared's just a bad game player and thinks that Blue is like, oh, I can tell Blue these things. And then Blue would immediately go tell Matt and Jag. So
that was happening this week?
Yes, all week.
Yes.
So that really added on to why Matt and Jag were so against Suri, was because through Jared, through Blue, they were getting every single thing she was saying as far as like, she's like, oh, I don't think I can trust Jag. And then Jared would tell Blue, yeah, Suri doesn't think she can trust Jag. We got to watch out for him. And then Blue would just go tell him right away. So that's where I'm like, Blue is doing things. Now, how intentional is it? I don't know. Is it just because she's mad and bitter at Jared? Potentially, but like she is actively drawing these lines and proving that Jared is just horrible at this game.
For a few weeks, she's been dancing this line, like in DRs and just the way that she acts, where it's like, you're so annoying, I hate you, to, oh my gosh, you're my favorite. Like, I love this energy that you're giving right now. And then like, oh, she knows that it's Suri. This is going to be awesome. Oh, she's not doing anything with that information for weeks. Oh, she's finally turning on Jared and finally like being that, like letting out some of that information. And now it's like, is it finally going to actually be a thing, or is it done now that Jared's gone and she's gotten her revenge? Like that, it's been back and forth all season with her.
Yeah. My gut tells me things probably won't change with her, and this might just be like, you know, the DR emphasizing those things to try to make us feel like there's more. But I would love to be wrong about her, because for weeks I've been saying she is just the lowest of the low when it comes to not playing the game in this house. But I don't know. Pass up Bowie, because Bowie's not far ahead of her, but I do think Bowie has been playing a little better than her.
I don't know. Bowie is still just kind of there. I feel like people are defending her more because there's been a lot of trash talk about Bowie in the house. Like Suri and Felicia, like just smack talking her constantly, it feels like. And smack talking everybody. They just get together and kind of gossip together. And Izzy would as well. But Bowie seemed to get the bulk of that. And then obviously the scene where Felicia is just like blowing up on her and like, you need to like woman up and figure it out. And it's like, take it easy. Like, she's gone through it, and I do have some empathy for her. I still don't buy that she's done anything game-wise.
I think my take on Bowie is that, yes, game-wise, she hasn't done much, if anything. However, I think she is in one of the best positions. I would say her and Mimi are exactly where I would want to be. Mimi more so. I'm really big on Mimi lately. I think as far as okay. I think just like that position of knowing information, which is what like they just have it all, and they are not the targets. They're not actively threatening anyone with it. And I think like if they get power, it's going to be interesting. But I think they are both examples of people that are like almost don't need it because they're so safe. You know, like none of them like have they ever needed to win? I don't think so. And when is the next time they'll need to win? I don't know. And so I think like for them to win and get blood on their hands would almost be the wrong decision. And so I just think they're both playing like great floater games. And I think if they can get to the end and word their winning game in the correct way, it could work out, you know? Again, it's not the traditional like, I won this comp, I got this threat out, I had a good, you know, but I think there is a game there worth winning. So I don't know. They're my sleeper picks right now.
Yeah, I think my thing with them is specifically Mimi. I see what you're saying about Bowie, and I feel like she's more on the like Corey, America, Jag, Matt side. The thing with Mimi, I think, is she is more associated, at least with what the allegiances were. She's more associated for me with Felicia and Suri. And so she's more associated with that side. So if that side's going to start getting attacked, she's going to be one of the ones that is used as a pawn, I think would be my fear with her. And then if something happens, she's the one that has to go. But to be fair, she's not like a vocal part of any of those alliances. She just kind of is aligned with them, and she might be more in with the other side of the house than I realize because she's not like way older like some of these other people. Like she's only a couple years older, and might be connecting with them more. So that's my thing with Mimi is she's just more associated with Suri in my mind.
Yeah, I suppose so. I think the interesting thing that I noticed this week, especially, is that even with all these house flips and the dynamic shifting, like we've reached a point where there have almost been no new alliances since probably like Seven Deadly Sins and For Real. Like that was probably the last of like here's these big groups. And the more interesting thing is that in the past 2 weeks, there have been multiple Final Twos that have formed, which is something that usually takes place like week 1, right? Like for a while, we saw everyone brag like, "Oh, on day 2 we formed a Final Two and made it to the like that was like the big thing." But about 2 weeks ago, like we saw Matt and Jag form the Minutemen, and they've been staying strong. I mean, if you watch the live feeds, like they are together, and I think they are going to like run together the entire time. And now we saw Mimi and Felicia finally link up in that way, where yes, they've been working together, but now it's like spoken, like we are working together. And so I think you already throw in, Jared and Suri would have been that, but then like Corey and America, and so it's like very interesting that instead of like these alliances, it's just a bunch of, and I said this before, but like voting block.
Yeah, that was a complete sentence. Honestly, this feels like an entirely like unique Big Brother season because we've seen voting blocks in Survivor, but it's so interesting that there are these alliances that none of them are true at this point. All of them are out there. Seven Deadly Sins, For Real, and Legend 25 are just out. Everybody knows them. Bye bye bitches, all of them.
Yeah.
But they're not. There's not even an attempt. I haven't seen anything of Corey, America, Jag, and Matt actually making something official with a name or anything. Like they're not even trying to, and I think that's them learning that having all of these alliances is foolish because you're going to get caught. But if you just have the people you trust and have these voting blocks, then you can just rely on that and work together for a common enemy, which is a really fun way to play. I think it's more risky because you have less people that you can fully rely on. You don't know who you're actually good with. It's literally just making sure you have a target bigger than yourself. But it's such cool gameplay that I'm all in on it. I hate when it's like, hey, let's all vote together. All right, now what's our alliance name? Like that's just so quick. Like I want to work with people. Like I want to vote with people, but I also want to work. It's different who I want to vote with and who I want to work with. A lot of times. So yeah, it's super cool.
It's advanced gameplay. It's crazy, and for that reason, it's really hard to tell where anyone fully stands because it's not like they're all like their targets might shift, And I think if these duos are realized, maybe they start to target those specific duos. So I don't know. I think it's the right move for a lot of people. Like I said, Matt and Jag. I think that's a good duo. I think Felicia and Mimi. That's a solid duo. Not for comp wins, maybe. Although Felicia won an HOH.
I wonder if it's going to start looking like Big Brother 19. In that it's just a bunch of duos all working against each other.
Sure.
Like, I don't know if there will be anybody necessarily in the Paul role. But...
Right. I was going to say, you say season 19, and I just get triggered because I don't know what you're talking about. But yes, okay. Yes. Potentially.
I was just trying to get you going. Yeah, because it was the three
like it better
duos.
not turn into season 19. What are you...
It was the 3 duos, Paul, and then old dude whose name I always forget.
Kevin.
That's the most normal name. I don't know why I couldn't come up with that. But it was like those 8, and Paul was just like in with all 3 of the duos and was like, we're an alliance. And
well,
I don't think we'll have that as much, but having the multiple duos all fighting over who's trying to stay is interesting.
Can we expand on that a little bit? Is Kevin the actual most normal name?
No, maybe not most normal, but like
I would.
He feels too old to be like Kevin.
I would suggest like John. John's got to be the most normal name.
Okay, yeah, John's probably the most normal name.
Okay,
most normal.
I just wanted to clarify before we lose that train of thought. That's very important.
I'm glad you stopped for that.
Is there anything you want to talk about with Corey and America? I noted that America is very excited to be on the block next to Corey, just because that's iconic to Big Brother history of being on the block with your showman. So I'm glad
was-
she's living out her experience.
She was getting a little bit more of something than I think anyone should from being on the block with someone. That's as far as I'll go. I was like, oh, take it easy.
Well, we
Still,
didn't mention last week there was the DR of her being like, "Oh yeah, Corey talked dirty to me. Tell me to flip the house."
no, gosh, I forgot about that.
So I think we know what she's into. It's just it's Big Brother iconic lore.
Themed role play. Yep.
Right.
Yeah, they're so much fun. I still enjoy them. I feel like they were in so much more control than they should have been this week when they were the two on the block. And then the cute little like, oh, he's gonna take me down off the block. No, he's gonna take me down like in the DRs. Those were a lot of fun too. So yeah, loved them so much.
All right. Well, I think that's mostly everyone as far as like individuals. Were there any other specific people you wanted to talk about?
I don't think
Um,
so. Like you said, there wasn't much that to like shift this week.
Mm-hmm. So let me ask you this. Who, and maybe it's a couple people, who do you think were like the big winners this week? Considering like Jared and Corey are gone, and let's take out the factor that one of them will return because that's way too hard to put on every
Mhm.
scenario. But like, who do you think benefited the most from them going back to back? I'll go first while you think about it.
Mhm.
I do think that probably Felicia and Mimi to an extent. But also I think more so Matt and Jack probably the most. Because I think again, Jack's a little tough because he was for the longest time just the pawn. But Matt's still, I think, kind of in the middle. His biggest threat is Suri, who can't win competitions. But I think like eliminating the two competition people, like Matt and Jack are probably the next in line to win a couple things. So
Yeah.
I think all those people just playing in the middle probably benefit the most. But like for Corey and America, I don't even know if this week was like amazing for them because they're still going to be, this showmance now that is going to be front and center of like, hey, we should deal with this at some point.
Mm-hmm. I have completely different picks for you.
Yeah, give it
Those
to me.
good thoughts. I agree with those. I think Blue. I think Blue benefited a ton from not having
Oh.
Jared be a part of her game. It frees her up to play with other people. And yeah, she's not beholden to whatever he does, the manipulation or whatever. She can play with the people, Jag and Matt, that she like actually wants to play with and enjoys playing with. And also she can just share the secret. Like there's less pressure of any of those things. So I think for her for sure. And then Sneaky, Suri, because I think she's so much less of a threat because now it's just Suri, and she doesn't have to clean up after Jared. I think that's bold because she could just be the next one on the chopping block. Absolutely. Because she's still a survivor legend, and I know for sure Corey isn't going to diminish that. Corey's not going to play around with it and let her stick around for super long, I don't think.
Mm-hmm.
But I think her threat level and how bad she is at comms makes her very interesting right now. So those would be my two. The two people closest to Jared, actually.
It's amazing how much he messes up their games. Like it
Honestly.
is.
He's fun to watch, like I said, but infuriating at the same time.
No, I mean, like, we're gonna have a discussion at some point. Like, is he one of the worst strategic minds, or the worst liars, or the worst? Like, I don't want to say he's like the worst player ever, but like, for some elements, he's got some of the worst characteristics of a Big Brother player.
And if he gets called on it, he just resorts to digging himself a hole and then walking it back and then just like bullying people into like the moment where he was yelling at Corey for super long. Corey starts to yell a little bit and he pulls the whole, hey, don't yell at me like that. I brought my energy down, so you bring your energy down. Like I hate when people do that. When they do the stupid like quit yelling. And it's like you were just yelling in my face. I'm gonna punch you. Like I just cannot handle that. I wanted to slap him right in his face.
I want to see you play Big Brother so bad. That's all. I had a
I think
little.
I think I would
Oh no, go
really
ahead.
struggle with that kind of stuff. I think after like weeks of like not a ton of sleep and all of this, I think yeah, it would be very challenging for me to be the kind person that I always
Yeah,
try to be.
that's what Luke said. Luke said the same thing when he didn't get a lot of sleep.
Luke didn't say the same thing
He
because
he
I
expressed that lack of sleep, eating. Like they bring a side out of you. That you're saying the
shut
same.
up, Nathan. I'm already over you.
All right, I wrote down a little stat here, okay? Because
Okay.
we talked about this. Because early on we had Riley HOH goes out next week. Heisum HOH goes out next week. The only person that has won HOH outside of Corey, because if he goes next week, then this continues. But Felicia's the only person in the house that has had HOH and not gone out the next week. Now, technically, Cameron and Jared have won twice, but if you want to word it, they got evicted the week after their HOH. That has happened 4 times this season.
Jeez.
4 out of the 6 people evicted this season.
That's insane.
Who have had the
That's
chance.
insane.
I'm wording this very poorly, but yes,
Yeah, you
basically
are.
4 times we had an HOH, and the next week they go out. I wrote down the times that this has happened pre-jury. Okay, it gets a little more complicated if you look at the whole season because like later on you can win, final 4 HOH and then go home. There's less people, right? So too many. But at this point in the season, with this many people left, seasons 4, 6, 9, and 16, it happened once where someone won HOH and went home the next week. And then in season 23, it happened twice. That was with Frenchie and Christian. So they both won HOH, went home the next week. This season it's happened 4 times. That is absurd. And again, the biggest thing is that we have how many people left in the house? Is it 10 now? It might be 10. I don't know. I'm just making up a number. And only 2 of them, Corey and Felicia, have won HOH right now. So that is insane how lopsided this was, how many HOHs have gone home. I don't know. It's bizarre. This season is bizarre, and that's just another stat to illustrate that.
Yeah, it's an anomaly for sure. I'm curious if this. I don't think this is the standard for Big Brother, but it would be awesome if it was. Like, this is fun.
Yeah, it definitely shakes it up, and I think it's gonna be very interesting. Like I said earlier, that now some of the big compies are out. That's what we're left with. But yeah, we'll see. Hopefully, it's an exciting week, despite it looking like a not exciting week, I guess.
Or it's a nice week off to prep for Survivor.
That's true too, because guess what? Next week we'll be coming at you with 2 episodes. That's exciting.
It'll probably be a shortened episode of Big Brother because we're basically gonna just be rehashing some of this and then saying what happened.
That's true. It's probably gonna be really short. We'll just talk about who comes back.
Okay,
I didn't
all
even
the
think
things I said
about.
last week. Ditto.
There's one more thing I want to talk to you about, non-Big Brother related, but slightly Big Brother related.
Traders.
We gotta talk about the traders.
We gotta talk about the traders, Nathan.
We gotta just bring this up on mic. So if you don't know, I don't know if we've ever talked about it on the podcast. I feel like I think
we talked about it as Cherie played that. Yeah.
Yes, but I think I might have told you to watch it on the podcast once too. I could be wrong. But The Traders is a show on Peacock that started off, I think, in the UK. There's also there's a Canadian and Australian. So there's a lot, and I hear most of them are pretty good. I've only ever seen the American, which is just one season that came out a couple months ago. And yes, we talked about it because Suri just
is the
won
host.
it. Yes, he is the host. It's very funny.
I recognized him immediately.
Yep.
Fluke is a bad man. Help save us.
Last season, I don't have a list, but I'm just trying to. It was Stephanie from what season was she on from Survivor?
11 and 12.
Yes. Yep. So her and Suri are from Survivor. Cody from Big Brother, Rachel from Big Brother, a couple other. I mean, it's a variety of reality stars, housewives, Below Deck.
There were some challenge people that were supposed to
Bachelor.
be on, but then we're told they couldn't go.
That's true.
Corey was posting about that the other day. He was supposed to go like the day before MTV was like, you can't. And now they're sending like 3 people and he's mad.
Well, he shouldn't be because let's be honest, these people are just bigger than him. That's just how it is.
Yeah, honestly.
So this cast is insane. Okay, I think there's one name I think that stands out to a lot of us, and that is Dan Giesling.
Dude,
He's coming back to reality TV.
he's gonna be so underestimated.
So here's the tricky part, and if you don't know how the show works, it's essentially Mafia, or Werewolf, or any sort of those games. Like the format they had last season, there were 3 traitors, which are essentially the killers, the Mafia, and those 3 people have to quote unquote murder someone every night, eliminate them from the game. Everyone votes on who they think it is. So with that being the case, there is a little less wiggle room because like if you're not a traitor, you don't necessarily get to be like backstabbing, lying, right?
Mhm.
You're all working together.
Yeah.
So it is going to be interesting because I'll read off some of these other people: Janelle from Big Brother, Parvati, Sandra from Survivor, the big challenge people, Bananas and CT. Like, oh my, like those people.
There's 2 people.
They're not all
from
going to be
each Mount
traitors.
Rushmore from each of those shows, from Big Brother,
Yes.
Survivor, and the Challenge. It's 2 people, half of the Mount Rushmore for each of those. I would say.
Yes, agreed.
Crazy. Crazy.
So I don't know. I mean, I'm excited. I know you're excited. Everyone's excited. I'm assuming you're gonna be catching up on season 1 and tuning in
Yeah.
ASAP to season 2.
Yeah, and they're starting filming, so we have a while to go. But
Yeah.
just looking at the cast, it's just crazy to imagine these people. And it must go quickly because it's like if it's it probably only takes a couple weeks to film. That's why they're getting such heavy hitters. They're like, I'll leave home for 3 weeks.
I think it's like 10 days.
Oh yeah, see, even better.
Because
If
it's
just
every
that
night
short.
someone, and they stay in Scotland. I mean, they get like this luxurious brunch like it's not the same as like Survivor and Big Brother. Like
Mhm.
it's just we're all going to go live in this really nice mansion. You know, there's not like a lot behind the scenes like of like strategy and all this. It is a very simplified version, which I just want to clarify because I do think people seeing this might be like, oh my goodness, they're all going to be cutthroat. And I'm like, I don't know if that's going to be the case because, like I said, they
Mhm.
can't all be traitors. Some of them,
Yeah.
like CT, might just be like a normal person that's just in the background trying to figure out who the murderer
Honestly.
is, right? So, like,
Yeah.
that's just kind of what it is.
He might get murdered night 1. Like Dan might
it's-
get murdered night 1 or something. Like
correct.
that's something to be prepared for.
Yes. But
That's so cool.
nevertheless, it's exciting that I don't know. I saw a good a tweet that was like, I can't wait to watch CT give Dan Giesling the bananas backpack treatment.
Honestly, it would be so much easier to backpack than Bananas was. Dan's so little.
Yeah, but they don't have competitions like that or anything. So it's a different show, but it's still exciting.
Are there competitions at all?
There are competitions, and I'm trying to remember. I think they might be for money. I might also
Okay.
be thinking of the mole though, because the mole's kind of similar in that way, where you're trying to figure out who the mole is.
I'm
But
supposed to watch that too.
the mole's pretty good. You would like it. But there are daily competitions, and there is a way to kind of see like, hey, you were kind of being a little weird. I think you might be the traitor because of this. So like, there are some things to tip them off, but for the most part, it's like a big round table and everyone pointing the finger, and then when the person that you were like, I swear that Tony's the traitor, and then you stand up and you're not the traitor, then everyone looks at you. So I mean, it's Mafia. Like that's what it is. It's watching a bunch of celebrities. And last season, I don't know if they're going to do this season, but last season it was half reality people and half normal people, which made it even more fun because these normal people were clueless, and that's part of the reason Suri dominated. Even though I will say she destroyed Cody and also destroyed Ari, who was a bachelor, which I think I explained how she did it at some point. But she she was a traitor with both of them and screwed them over. So it's a good show. Excited.
That's crazy.
All right,
I'm excited.
Let's wrap this up.
Let's wrap it up.
Find more episodes at notgameonpersonal.com, Spotify, or Apple Podcasts, wherever you listen to podcasts, really. Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, at NGAP Pod. That is at NGAP Pod. I'm Nathan. This is Tony, and we will see you next week.
Remember to love one another.